Good evening. I want to call to order this meeting of the Town of Wendell Board of Commissioners and welcome all of you here. We've got a nice full house tonight. That's always exciting for me to see a lot of folks here. Our Pledge of Allegiance tonight we're going to be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Tamara Bridges. If you can come to the podium, please, ma'am. Tamara is an 8th grade student at Wendell Middle School. She loves English and social studies and has a lifelong love of science. The love of science has helped her spur her dreams of becoming a pediatric nurse later in life. Now, I asked you what you wanted to do, and you said you weren't sure.
Not too sure yet.
When her teachers were asked to describe her, the words kind, determined, and sweet kept coming up over and over again. There's never been an obstacle that Tamara hasn't been able to overcome. She doesn't have a defeatist attitude. She works very hard to look at problems from all directions and never says never. She says that she's learned all this determination from her mother. That's very sweet. She gives credit to her mom for always providing for her and encouraging her to do her best. Additionally, Miss Irene Riley from Wendell Elementary School has been the teacher from whom she has learned the most. Miss Riley treated all of her students kindly and fairly according to Tamara, and it was through that kindness that really sparked a trust between Miss Riley and Tamara and led her to a love of learning. That's very nice. Tamara's teachers consider it an honor to have taught her, and we all look forward to seeing where she will go in life. Well, we're very proud of you.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here with us tonight. And you're going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Is that correct? Go ahead.
I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Our invocation tonight from the Wendell Council of Churches is actually, tonight's night is Wendell Baptist Church, and we have Errol Briggerman. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you. If I could put a plug in for our Habitat for Humanity house over on Gill Street in Zebulon. It's like all covered in now. We're getting ready to do the roof. There's several churches within our community and in Zebulon who's building that. It's worth driving by and looking at. It's really a cool project.
Thank you for letting us know about it.
You bet. All right? Let's pray. Lord, thank you. Thank you, Lord, for the beautiful day you have given us. Thank you, Lord, for our city, for how you have blessed us, how you have blessed so many families within our city, Lord. We just give you all the praise and glory for that. We just ask you, Lord, as we come before you tonight, as the decisions that our council have to make, that they will honor you. We know, Lord, that there are some decisions that are very difficult. We just ask you, Lord, that they all be blessed by you. And for all these things, we ask in your blessed name. Amen.
Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
A motion to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
We have one person signed up for public comment, Clara Giannetti. Good evening, ma'am. Step right here to the podium and tell us your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Clara Giannetti. I live on Old Zebulon Road, 1126. And I came tonight because I have a concern about the laws regarding how long and under what conditions dogs in particular are allowed to be restrained here. I have a neighbor in particular that it's one big yard. We are not fenced in. And I've been here for 6 months and this dog has never been off the chain. And it really breaks my heart. In the snow, in the freezing, in the 100-degree sun, never has this dog for 5 seconds been off the chain. I guess they feed it because it's alive, but I haven't seen anyone go out there, so it's probably not every day. I know it's not every day. I have videotaped on my phone. Our first snowfall was on a Wednesday, and on Friday I had animal control come out and showed them that there were no footprints in the snow going from the home to the dog that's in the backyard, which showed that no one had been out there to bring it food or water for at least 3 days. And they told me that there's nothing they can do. So I came here to see if there's anything that can be done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, item number 4 is the recognition of Wendell Middle School Marcy Raby. Did I say that right? Robbie? Miss Robbie earned a bachelor's degree in psychology from Mary Washington University in Virginia. She joined the Teach for America program and began teaching special ed at J.W. Parker Middle School in the Nash Rocky Mount public school system. During her 16-year tenure there, she received numerous awards and accolades and was named the Teacher of the Year in 2016. Ms. Raby has also completed her master's in educational leadership and has called Wendell Middle her home since 2016. She's a special education math teacher at Wendell Middle School. She's also our special education department chair. Ms. Raby does an outstanding job teaching students with unique learning needs. She truly has a gift for building relationships with her students. Her laugh is contagious and you just can't help but smile in her classroom. She's always infusing her humor in her lessons. Ms. Raby is also very competitive, whether it is challenging her students to a game of Connect Four or working with her special ed team to build the biggest and best gingerbread house for a fun holiday competition. She does everything with enthusiasm that cannot be measured. These qualities have helped her students thrive and flourish despite academic challenges in math. Her students have gained confidence in their math skills because of her instructional practice and the relationships she's built with them. We are very fortunate to have Ms. Raby as a teacher at Wendell Middle School. I just wanted to thank you, we did, for everything that you do for the children in Wendell and Wendell Middle School. I wanted to thank you and congratulate you for being recognized by your principal and staff there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to take the time to say thank you to my administration. You know, I came to Wendell over a year ago, and I was really looking for a new home. The school I'd been at before, I was there for about 16, 17 years. And so I really feel like I found a place to call home. Wendell has been so supportive. I love the community support that we get within the school. My principal, my assistant principal, and then I even have Miss Cheryl Faison here, Miss Brooks, Miss Sanders. Everybody came out. Yeah, I do. Right, and that's just so much love. And I tell you what, it makes our job so much easier. So thank you to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 5 is a presentation of the Local Government Federal Credit Union. The speaker is Jasmine Kilpatrick. Good evening. Thank you for being here with us tonight.
Well, thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Temp, and Commissioners, and Sherry. My name is Jasmine Kilpatrick. I'm with Local Government Federal Credit Union, and we are the sister credit union of State Employees Credit Union, and we're the only credit union that's exclusive membership to local government employees, local elected officials, volunteers, and their family members. And we reach out to local elected officials to let them know some benefits that we have as it relates to scholarships at UNC Chapel Hill School of Government for any continuing education or a workshop that they may host. So we encourage you all to apply. I know a lot of people are members of State Employees Credit Union. You can also be a member of Local Government Federal Credit Union if you wanted to. We also support the community in various ways through sponsorships and community events. And one thing that we do throughout the state to say thank you, and we're actually going to do it for you all, is sponsor meals for your retreat that's coming up. So we really appreciate everything that you do, and thank you for letting me speak, and special thanks to Sherry. She's actually on our advisory council, so thank you.
Thank you.
And I
Thank
have
you for
pins
being
and
here.
some information. I'm going to leave it with David. So.
Okay, thank you. Our retreat is actually this Saturday, so that's great. Thank you. Item number 6 is a public hearing that's continued from January 8th, 2018. It was on a zoning text amendment to chapters 11 and 17 of the UDO as they relate to street lights. Mr. Bergmark.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the board. At our last meeting on January 8th, staff presented some updated cost information related to streetlights, both our existing policy as well as the proposed changes to our policy and proposed changes to the UDO. During that meeting, there was a desire expressed by this board to get some input from some of our developers. Lucius Jones came and spoke regarding this. He may want to speak again tonight, but staff was asked to go and talk to a few other members. So we had a chance to talk to Lucius Jones, a scheduled meeting with him, who is the developer for Groves Deerfield. We also spoke with Edgemont Landings, as well as representatives of Newland Communities for Wendell Falls. I'll say a little bit about our conversation with Mr. Jones and allow him to add more if he wants to, but Mr. Jones expressed some concern over the upfront costs involved with our current policy that asks you to pay basically the cost difference on a pole if you're doing pedestrian upgraded lighting, covering a 20-year span. Also expressed some concerns, didn't really want to pursue forming an HOA, which is the provision that would allow you under the proposed policy to have pedestrian lighting. Under that policy, you can still have that option, but you have to form an HOA to kind of take over payments and then get reimbursed from the town. And suggested that it was really looking for more of a input from or ownership from the town in terms of tax dollars going towards those improved lighting options. Edgemont Landings, I spoke with Jason Rieswig of DR Horton, and they've actually already, for the most recent phase, taken on that contract with Duke directly in order to avoid those upfront costs. So he was very much in favor of this policy, which would then create an option of getting some reimbursement from the town for at least the base costs. And Newland is basically in a similar situation where they've already contracted directly with Duke in order to avoid those upfront costs. So they are in favor of this kind of proposed structure of an HOA having the contract and then getting reimbursements from the town. So I wanted to present that information to you. And the main reason for not having more is, well, mainly that most of our other places that you'll see houses built, those aren't necessarily developers. They're just builders moving into an area where a developer already established everything for them. So we didn't feel like having that conversation with True Homes was really appropriate or helpful to the conversation. I'd be happy to go over more detail over what we've covered, but I'll leave it to you to see what information you may want or what questions you may have.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Bergmark?
I've got one or two, David, and I know, in full disclosure, David and I talked earlier, and then we spoke this afternoon about this as well. It seems like the folks that have dealt with this in the past, to be that Wendell Falls or whoever else, we found a solution for. And I understand that there's a fiscal impact, and I'll go out on a limb and say that no one enjoys a good fiscal impact study more than me. But I'm trying to figure out why, I'm now approaching 2 years, why this has never come up as a financial, like something that we're concerned about financially, something that, if we didn't have to pay this, we'd be able to pay that. You guys were trying to eke out $13,000 for economic development last year in the budget, and this never rose to the board's attention, or at least to my recollection, never rose to our attention. I'm trying to just, if you know that answer, if you could put that in perspective.
Sure, or at least I can partially comment to it. I mean, part of it is, Wendell Falls is partly what brought this to our attention, in that when they were looking at the upfront cost for their, early phases they were getting into, it was going to be a monumental number. So we, started looking at addressing it, but at the same time, in the case of Wendell Falls, they took on that contract directly, so it hasn't been, it's not, the town hasn't had costs involved with that, so that may have made things, not that we haven't been working on it, but it wasn't as immediate of a need to respond really quickly and get an immediate solution, since right now it's really Wendell Falls that's been, bearing that cost. But we have been working through it. There are, we've had our attorney look at it, their attorney look at it, we've met with Duke Energy. But the main answer is it wasn't really until Wendell Falls came that this really rose to our attention. And then once we crunched the numbers, when we started putting together a policy that would be not just for Wendell Falls, not just a Wendell Falls agreement, but a town-wide agreement, and we started really crunching those numbers to see what the real cost would be, that's really when the potential impact on the town from a long-term financial analysis really rose to the forefront, and we realized this has some pretty serious long-term impacts that we need to address.
And maybe Ms. Piner, I mean, is this something that we've been paying? Is this a number that's been in a budget somewhere that I've just not seen?
Well, what has happened is over a period of time, we had the recession and the crash, and so we haven't really had any new developments for an extended period of time. And so that is when, now that we have started building developments again, and what those that were developing very small pieces at a time, and it didn't really have that big of a financial impact. What we're seeing now is new developments are coming in, they're larger now, the upfront costs are more, and this was in an effort to be fair to everyone across the board. And to try to see what the benefit is so that the developers could save. Again, small few lots hadn't really been a major issue. Now that the numbers of lots are getting larger, that the cost does add up.
I'll just make a comment. I always appreciate when town staff tries to find ways that we can save money, and obviously that's appreciated. I'll also say that there's a few things that I think residents count on us to provide, lights on the street being one of them. That said, there's no expectation of what that light should look like. The goal for me is always to make Wendell the best version of itself it possibly can be, and I think that the presentations we've seen before, obviously, and then the way this policy is written, acknowledge that some things are more aesthetically pleasing than others. That said, it's an economic decision that'll have to be made by whoever is building that development, and if the town decides that it wants to look as pretty as other places and have these things as a requirement, that's a decision that we as this board are going to have to make, I would assume, at some time in the future. I'll go a step further to say that I don't have any intention of making this the temporary signs of 2018, but I do intend to look at this and keep having conversations with people, and I hope staff will continue to have conversations with us, because if we find a way to make this better, I intend to be the one to bring it back and say, hey, look, here's a way that we can incentivize something that looks a little bit nicer in town. But at this time, given the decision that we have in front of us, I'm going to go with what staff's recommended, and just noting that I've got a couple concerns that I think maybe we can make better.
Are there any other comments, questions?
I have one question. In the case of Newland, since they entered the contract with Duke Energy, they're solely responsible for the cost of that power as well as the maintenance on the light pole, correct?
Correct. Well, they're paying Duke to perform the maintenance, but yes, they're the sole party paying for it.
So a resident in Newland, if their street light wasn't working, they would call HOA or Duke Energy, right?
Correct.
Okay. The other comment I would have is, it seems, I agree with Commissioner Joyner, I wouldn't want to pay some of the price tags that I'm seeing on these houses, and then look outside and see a wooden pole. So it's almost like we're punishing the developers for putting up something nice. So I'm sure there's a compromise, but.
Well, and I do want to remind the board that part of this change would be to upgrade to at least the fiberglass pole. So we are looking at, raising the bar from our current standard.
Do you have a picture of this?
I don't know that I do actually, because I had these two pictures shown, but
Lights, I think.
it would basically, it would look similar. Take that style pole on the pedestrian one and make it taller and switch it over. I mean, it'd be pretty similar to that. A similar fixture on the top, but that would be a black, black or gray fiberglass pole rather than the wood pole.
So essentially, what we would be doing here is upgrading at least the bottom from a wood pole to a fiberglass pole.
Correct.
Correct? And the town is not taking on the financial responsibility of the front end of the cost. Is that?
So basically, the developer is not taking on that upfront cost responsibility anymore. Under the proposed policy, it would be the developer would pay just an underground connection fee, which is something that Duke requires. It's about $500 per pole. And then if they're upgrading their lights to a pedestrian pole, then they'd form an HOA, and that HOA would be paying those monthly costs rather than the town. The town would, on an annual basis, be reimbursing them. If they did not upgrade their pole and they just did our new standard, which is a fiberglass tall pole, 25-foot tall, then the developer would pay that underground fee, but that's the only thing the developer would pay, and the town would just be paying the monthly cost. But there would be no large upfront fee for the town. It would just be, we'd be paying that monthly cost of those fiberglass poles.
Right, I misspoke. The upfront fee is for the developer, not the town. But over the period of years, is there not a cost savings to the town in what you're suggesting?
There is, compared to the pedestrian post that a lot of the subdivisions have chosen, in that's what's costing so much money. In the financial analysis we looked at, even with that upfront cost that the developers are paying us right now, after 11 or 12 years, that money's gone. And from then on into infinity, it's costing the town 2-3 times more money to have those pedestrian posts compared to our standard pole.
I'll go a step further and say that, not this board, but some previous board passed a UDO that, if not incentivized, certainly encouraged us to put these poles out, and the math wasn't done correctly at some point on that to determine how to pay for it. I certainly don't think we're going to go take those poles down, but it does highlight why we should look at the fiscal impact of everything we pass as a board, because if not, you end up looking at a situation like this and trying to solve problems that you never intended to create.
Yeah. Well, to me, I want it to look pretty. We want it to be attractive, and I certainly don't want to discourage anyone for doing nicer things at any opportunity that they can. But I also feel like we have to be cognizant of the costs that we're leaving on the town. Anyone else? Jessalyn?
Yeah, I would like to ask a quick question. So you're saying 2 to 3 times, is that just because they're placed more frequent, or where are those numbers coming from?
It's for a few different reasons. One, there's going to be twice as many poles because they're spaced out every 150 feet rather than 300 feet. The other reason is the upfront fee that we're charging a developer right now, if they use that pedestrian upgraded pole, is based on a 20-year time frame. Well, that might be the time frame of the original agreement, but we're going to keep paying Duke for that as long as that pole's there for, however many years. It could be 200 years later, we're still paying for that increased price. And the final reason is, for that 20-year time frame, we're charging them on a per pole cost of how much extra that costs, but we're not charging them for the fact that there's an extra pole which has a base cost. Well, I'm probably getting too much in the weeds, but there's like an extra $9 a pole basically per month, and that little bit extra is not being charged as well. So all those things combined on that attachment C, there's a part where it talks about the annual cost per 300 feet, and like a wood pole is $109, and your pedestrian poles are $320 and $462 per month, or sorry, per year, based on that 300-foot span. So it adds up, and based on my analysis, after, like I said, after the 11 or 12-year mark, we're paying more at that point.
So the long and the short is, form an HOA, have the HOA, offset that cost throughout the development, and HOAs can regulate if they want to, correct?
Yeah, and that's if you want the upgraded pole. Right. Or you can just do the fiberglass pole and we'll pay for it.
Right. But if you're trying to avoid paying the upfront cost, form an HOA, and have the HOA regulate that, the light poles, and whatever else you see fit. But you don't have to have an HOA that's charging, absurd amount of money a month. It could be minimal is what I'm saying.
Right. So I looked at, because, I'm looking at who's paying for what, where's the money coming from, because this is shifting some financial responsibility from the developer and from the town to an HOA if they choose to have these upgraded poles. So I wanted to try to gauge how much would that be, and using Foxborough as an example, I looked at, how much linear road frontage they have, how many feet of roads in their neighborhood, and that's going to influence how many poles they need. And then I looked at what the costs were and how much would it be for them to have one of these pedestrian posts, and it worked out to be, for the kind of more basic pedestrian posts, it'd be $3, per home per month, and for the fancier one, it'd be $5 per home per month. So we're not talking about astronomical figures here. If you had an HOA that this is all they were really controlling was streetlights, you should be able to do it very economically.
These rates that Progress or Duke or CP&L or whatever they're going to be called next week, the rates that they charge per pole, how often are those rates changed? Who has a hand in setting those rates? And how long do we expect these rates to stay what they are on a per month or per year basis?
I'm not sure how often they change. I don't think it changed more than annually. Do you know by chance?
Yeah, I think they look at the cost per pole and per fixture annually. The underground charge, I believe, only came about once the economic downturn and to recoup some of those costs. I don't believe that was prior to.
I think that came about whenever Duke bought out Progress Energy, and that's when that began.
So that's when they did the underground charge, the one-time underground charge, but the pole itself and the fixture, I believe that's looked at annually. And so it could change. It usually does not change by much, but it could change on a regular basis. As who sets it,
is that something that the Utilities Commission has a hand in, or is that just something that Duke decides on? Or I imagine if Duke's charging for it, the Utilities Commission's got some hand in that.
It's
I
the
believe
chicken
so.
or the egg. So the Utilities Commission decides rate increases whenever they want to decide rate increases, and then Duke comes up with things like underground charges to offset increases they didn't get.
And if they don't get enough increases, they just put
So
somebody from Duke on
Right.
the Utilities Commission. Yeah, I got it.
We only put
We
two
all
on
know
there
how that works.
last week.
And the reason I ask that is because, the LED fixture at $7.53 a month, yes, that adds up, but 20 years from now, $7.53 is, with inflation isn't going to matter. And so if these rates were set in stone for some period of time, then I'll be less likely to worry about the financial costs of the town. But if they're updating these, charges on an annual basis, and we don't know when the last time they were adjusted at all. They may look at them once a year, but when's the last time they were adjusted?
I think that once they have a contract, then that remains whatever that contract is for that 10 to 20 year period of time. So that, as far as the cost per pole and that sort of thing, so that wouldn't change now, but they are looked at, on a regular basis. But I think the last time we looked and just noticed it was probably about a year and a half ago, some of our latest numbers. But I don't know.
Well, then that brings up another interesting question. So it's basically like if you're renting an apartment, that first year, your rent's the same and then if you decide not to go into a lease and go month to month, maybe that rate goes up. Is there any way for the poles that the town's already responsible for, we can look at a more long-term contracted solution to keep those price increases down, or to give us any sort of negotiating power? Maybe this is getting a little off into the weeds, but...
I don't know if we've ever had that conversation. We can bring it up. I don't know if they do contracts for more than 20 years, but...
I'm saying once the contract is up, can you have another contract?
To lock it in.
Is what I'm saying.
I'll be glad to talk to you.
All right, that would be something I'd be interested in.
And then, David, I have one other question, too, as well. I'm looking at this chart you did, that kind of compared the existing policy and then used the Foxborough crossing example.
Correct.
So my concern with the policy is that the developers are going to opt not to do HOA and just do the standard fiberglass, which I know our standard is still an upgrade. If I'm looking at this, the standard fiberglass, I guess if we're using the Foxborough crossing example, and I'm following, am I looking at, is the second line down on that chart? Are you looking at?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So it's the 25-foot LED, 75-watt roadway fiberglass. That would be the new standard, correct?
Correct.
So if I'm following that all the way out to the very, very, very end, in that little red section, which says cost of 10 over 40 years, that's still, I know it's only $12,000, but that's still more to us long-term, right?
Yeah, the fiberglass, if they opt for that option, would cost the town a little bit more, and that was supposed to kind of be a good faith effort on our point of raising the bar a little bit.
Okay.
But if you, or at least in my opinion, if you compare it to the cost we're paying for the pedestrian, it's still a big cost savings compared to that. And I think just different developers will make different choices in that regard. Some will choose to just opt for the fiberglass poles. Others, such as D.R. Horton, they're not even getting reimbursed right now, and they chose to go and contract with Duke. So, and keeping the pedestrian posts.
That little, and it's $12,000 over 40 years, and it's a better product. I mean, that little bit is not a big deal to me, but I guess my concern is still is, while I like the fact that it's a good faith for developers, is it going to, we're going to see less pedestrian lights. That's the only thing I would want to watch over long term. So, but thank you for that chart.
Mm-hmm.
No one's asked the obligatory, what do other towns do? What do other towns do?
Sorry, I should have mentioned this to the whole group. I mentioned this to a couple of people I've talked to independently, but this option of doing it this way was presented to us by Duke originally whenever we were trying to figure out what to do with Wendell Falls, and they said this is what Raleigh does and this is what Knightdale does, and they might have gave one other example, I don't recall. Okay. But so this, we're not creating this model ourselves.
So this is customary.
Yeah, I mean, so I think Raleigh's retained the wood pole and Knightdale upgraded to the fiberglass pole, and we like the idea of the fiberglass pole better.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any more questions for Mr. Bergmark? Are we ready to close the public hearing? Excuse me?
Have you asked for any comments?
Would anyone like to speak? You're right, thank you. I got all wrapped up in it. Come on.
My name is Lucius Jones. I'm 410 Selma Road, Wendell. If I sound different tonight, it's not that I'm drinking. I had a tooth pulled a while ago, so just to clear the air so nobody will suspect me of stopping by Wine 101 on the way here.
I'm glad you cleared that up.
May stop on the way
I didn't want to have to call anybody.
I'm just back to, I guess, reiterate what I talked about the other night. We have spent a lot of time and effort in this town trying to upgrade the town, upgrade the looks. And when I was sitting on the board with where you are, we spent money downtown putting in pedestrian lights. I mean, somebody could have said, well, you didn't have to have pedestrian lights, you could have just kept the overhead lights, But we didn't. We made an investment because we wanted the town to be improved. And I think this is a typical example here. Does Wendell want to invest in looking better and being a better town? I think we should. The last time I developed a section of land, I paid a little less than $1,400 to put all this pedestrian lights in. And this time, I was told, I've got a section approved, and we're working on it, but all of a sudden it comes up that I'm going to owe $60,000 if I put in pedestrian lights. That's what I'm told by the town. I'm not gonna do that. I can't afford to do that. We can put in the fiberglass poles that you're talking about, but I think it's a step backwards in the aesthetics of Wendell. Now, I'm not a new one. I don't come in here and, and put in 1,200 houses or whatever. I'm a small, local developer. I've been developing here all my life, and I do care about this town, and I care about what it looks like. But, when you talk about putting extra $1,000 a house on it just to have a pedestrian light for that homeowner. And by the way, you know who pays the electric bill for these lights? The taxpayers. Have the taxpayers been up here complaining to you about their tax being too high? I don't think so. I think they're happy with what we're doing and how we're making the town look. And you talk about an HOA, a lot of people don't like HOAs. I sell a lot of my houses because people will come and say, I don't want an HOA. Well, what you're doing with this HOA business, you're just putting the burden back on the homeowner. Instead of raising his taxes, you're going to charge him a fee. So he's paying an extra fee to get that light fixture, which I thought has always been the responsibility of a town to provide street lights for the citizens. That's one of the things you get. I don't know, you may get some other things, but street lights is one of them. And I just think that we would be taking a step back as far as development if we go with this program. What you do with Duke Power and what you do with Wendell Falls or what have you, I mean, I'm not involved in that. I don't know what they're paying. Do you know? What are they paying for their street lights?
No, that's a contract directly with them.
Yeah. Well, see, I don't know what they're paying. I can't hardly believe that my little 60-lot subdivision is going to cost $60,000 extra for those lights, but that's what the figures here are saying. So, anyway, I think you ought to think long and hard about this. I don't think it's something that will entice developers and builders to come to Wendell, which I think we ought to be enticing people to come here and build and develop and make this town grow. I can't see this being an issue that's going to help that. Does anybody have any questions of me? I'll be happy to answer them.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Jones?
I've got one.
Yeah.
So the last time you developed the lots, you said a little under $1,400 is what it cost you to put the pedestrian lights in?
Yes.
What year was that?
Been about 7. It was before the Depression.
So,
but
2009 was when the UDO was created, correct?
Mm-hmm. Well, it was adopted and amended.
What was the policy before the UDO as far as, because one of my questions this afternoon and talking with David and trying to get to the bottom of this issue was, at what point did we cross that bridge? How did we get from 1,400 to 60,000?
And I would, part of that is that cost, that underground cost that he was talking about, that is that charged by Duke Power that was not in place before. And then the other is now the difference between the wooden pole and the upgraded poles, and we were talking about them going up on their cost and their poles, but that is now the difference between those poles.
So you're saying you have pedestrian lights in the phase that you developed where you paid $1,400?
the town requested for us to put them in. When we did, yeah, we put them in, and like I said, it was $1,400. I looked up the check this week. It was less than $1,400 difference that I paid. Now, this money she's talking about, the $500 for the pole and all, I have to pay that. The town's not paying that.
That is correct, but that number included.
So at this point, all we can come up with is a cost in basically a price increase per pole in the material itself from Duke.
And I'd be glad to go back and look up Mr. Jones's paperwork on that. But But, you know, we've got the price increase from the underground cost, plus the price increase, the difference.
Or I've got to pay the underground costs. I'm paying that, $500. So y'all don't have a price increase on that. I get that price increase.
That is correct.
That's correct.
That you will be paying that.
That's right.
That is something.
You're just
we
saying
can't
that
wait.
I think what this end run is here is that the pedestrian light is gonna be more expensive. And they're saying that the difference in the overhead light and the pedestrian light over a 20-year period is gonna be $60,000. Which is that?
Well, and we'll be glad to pull those numbers. I mean, that's something that we've calculated in-house, and we'll be glad to pull that. We can get that.
Cause this is 60 lots, has only got like 15, would have 15 poles.
So the bigger fallacy in this for me, and the bigger thing that, so it irks me about this, I sat in the town of Tarboro at the front desk in 2009 when Electricities was initially going belly up, and yellow cake uranium, which nobody had ever heard of, was suddenly spiking, and there was an 18% increase in price. I trust you guys to tell me what the number is with Duke, and I trust you to tell me what the number is with the poles and the underground fees today. And I trust you to tell me what you think aesthetically looks nice. I don't trust anybody to tell me what the price of power or uranium or any of the other stuff that affects all of this, because, you know, Duke didn't shut down and consolidate. Duke got a rate increase. They didn't get 17%, they got 13%, which they're asking for 17 now. They're going to get about 12.5. We don't have any way of controlling this, so I'm all for making sure that we pay for the foreseeable future, for the projectable future, but trying to put a number out there that's 20 years in the future. I mean, if you'd asked me 20 years ago where I'm going to be with me sitting right here, I think that there's a way that we can hedge our bets. And we can make the case for a lot of things, but these numbers are not numbers we can just take to the bank. I made the case earlier, and I told you why I support what David's put before us, and it has nothing to do with the numbers, because the numbers are junk. And it's not junk because anybody tried to make them junk. It's junk because we can't predict 20 years out. So nobody needs to go home and go to sleep tonight thinking that we have these numbers and they're good numbers. They're just the best we can guess with right now. Is there a projection in there for rate increases? Have we said?
No, because this was based upon this and a contract with those numbers. I didn't project any.
I mean, so they'll do 20-year contracts, so I'd say there's a little bit more assurances that if somebody contracted, you know, today, that 20-year number should be pretty close. Now, 40-year, that's assuming that it's the same cost between year 20 and year 40, which that, you're right, could change, because it would be a new contract would have to be formed. But if you have a 20-year contract, it should be locked in at least for the term of the contract.
Okay, I'm just saying, I think that this needs to be looked at, and it needs to be, I mean, we need to decide if we want to try to help this town look better. Suppose we hadn't put the pedestrian lights downtown, what would it look like, you know? That was an investment we made. And I think this is an investment that town can make in the subdivisions in town to make them look better. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? All right, do you think we're safe to close it this time? Close the public hearing? I was thinking close the public hearing, and then we can deliberate and decide what you want to do. Okay. All right, public hearing's closed. All right, go. What do you want to say?
Oh, no, that's fine.
Okay.
I was bringing to the closing of the public comment.
Okay. So what are y'all thinking?
Well, I think from hearing everybody talk, there's just a lot of I don't think any of us are really high-fiving over the policy. I mean, I think it's an improvement, but I had a concern, as Mr. Jones did, with you know, if everybody just goes and starts putting in these to save costs, not from HOAs, are we going to have neighborhoods that's when they make Wendell nice, is the street lights, the pedestrian lights. I mean, and I know it's a small difference, and I still think maybe there's a better compromise in the middle. Something that we know our own town could think about better than, you know, Duke Power handing down to us. But like Jason, like Commissioner Jordan said, I don't want this to be another temporary sign next year. Roll every week, so.
Well, you don't have to take action. I mean,
When is the board retreat?
Saturday.
When is I wouldn't mind tabling it in a work session or something, board meetings. Already full.
Yeah, at another work session.
Can
Is
we?
that in the form of a motion?
I'll make a different motion, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Can we table this, and so it would be, the motion would be a table to a date certain, the date certain being the first budget work session for this to come back up. And in that time, I'd love to know what we're paying currently. So as we're planning on this year's budget, we can factor this in. Or I'm amicable to the work session at Town Board Retreat. And I'm happy to vote on it tonight.
I like the idea of tabling it, Commissioner Jordan.
Yeah.
Is that in the form of a motion to table this until
Would y'all prefer the
work session?
budget work session? Budget work session.
Budget work session?
Because it's the number piece that I'd love to know when we're projecting our budget out, what we're projecting for this particular thing.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion to table this until the first budget work session during the budget season. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor? All right. Item number 7 is an update on board committees by town board members. Fire Advisory Board, Commissioner Joyner.
The Fire Board met last month, and we are beginning the budget process with Wake County, as well as projecting out or attempting to begin planning for the opening of the new fire station, which is going to increase Wendell's Fire Department by 9 full-time personnel, as well as at least 1 engine and a whole station. So we're trying to make sure we have our friends at the county ready to help us on that. Looking forward to working through that process.
Is that it? Right. The other one is me. It's Campo, and Campo was rescheduled this past week due to the weather. So I'll let you know when we meet. It's later on this week, actually. Item number 8 is Commissioners' Reports. We'll start with Commissioner Joyner. Report.
Nothing tonight, Madam Mayor.
Commissioner Boyette.
How about that Wolfpack?
Still love them.
Still do. I would like to say thank you again to Public Works, the police, all town employees that came in, worked during the snow, worked to clear the snow, worked to help people get around even when they knew they shouldn't be out, buying even more bread and milk. It was, I think, unexpected in the amount of snow we were going to get. I think it started out, we thought it would just be a dusting, and then it ended up being more than, more than we expected. But once again, people in town, and especially because the schools closed down, there's just a lot less traffic And that makes it a whole lot easier to get the roads cleared up. So I just want to say thanks again to all the town staff for the way they did. If it keeps snowing though, this is just going to be a normal thing. And we'll have to,
Yeah.
so that's all I had.
Commissioner Myrick?
Nothing tonight.
Commissioner Lutz?
Nothing tonight.
Commissioner Carroll?
No comment.
Just real briefly, I hate Miss Giannetti left. I wanted to make a comment about Wake County Animal Control. Wendell contracts for animal services and animal control services through Wake County Animal Control. Wake County Animal Control serves the unincorporated areas of Wake County: Apex, Morrisville, Fuquay Varina, Knightdale, Wendell, Zebulon, Wake Forest, and Rollsville. Garner, Holly Springs, Raleigh, and Cary have their own animal control within their town staff. We do not here. Wendell's a small town, so it's more cost efficient for us to contract those services out. I met with these folks actually, it's just a few weeks ago, right before Christmas, and we actually filmed a public service announcement about animal control because there's been a lot of animal control issues that have been brought to my attention lately, and there's been a certain amount of discord about animal control, and some incidents have taken place of varying kinds, and I felt like we needed to let people know who to call and how to handle issues like that. When I was there, Dr. Federico did offer to come and speak, and I would like Ms. Scoggins to please contact her, and let's get her on the agenda to come and talk and let us know what they offer so that the public can hear what the animal control offers to them. They also said they would like to be present at an event in town. They're willing to come to an event, so let's keep that in mind.
Public Safety Day, they have been there before. So
well, let's have them come this year again to Public Safety Day and set up so that folks can stop and talk with them and find out a little bit more about what they do. I will say that the tethering is an issue that has been brought to my attention several times, and essentially, as long as an animal, a dog, always a dog, has some shelter and some food and water, they are going to allow them to be tethered in the yard. I don't think, my dogs are probably in my house laying on the couch while I'm here, but everybody doesn't treat their pets that way, and different pets have different purposes that they serve, and I think as long as animals have a shelter and food and water, that's all animal control can do. And honestly, that's all a lot of these towns do as well, because I've asked the various mayors from the communities that do their own animal control, what do you do, how do you look at it and abate, I think she commented to me before the meeting that Raleigh does something different, and maybe they do, but at this time, all we can do essentially, unfortunately, is that we are reactive rather than proactive. They don't ride around looking for things, but they come if you call them. So if you do have a problem, I would encourage you to call them. The number is 919-856-6911, and you can call them on the telephone, and they can come, and if you see a continuing problem like this lady reported to me earlier, I would encourage her to please call again and call them, and they're more than happy to come and investigate a problem. The main thing that I wanted to tell you about was that I met with the manager and Ms. Scoggins, and a couple other folks met with the North Carolina Sports Hall of Fame this past Tuesday, and Jake May from Wendell, who played baseball in Wendell back in the very early 1900s, is part of the 2018 class that will be inducted. He will be posthumously inducted into the North Carolina Sports Hall of Fame on May 4th in Raleigh. We're very, very excited. I'm going to be attending the event, and I would encourage all of you to go if you can. I'm sure it will be very nice. The things that they've told us about it, it's going to be a very nice event. And the public is certainly invited, and I would love it if Wendell had just several tables full of people. I'm very proud of Jake May and his family. And a lot of folks did a lot of hard work, and a lot of effort was put into the application to get it accepted. It was turned down the first time. We learned a lot from it, resubmitted it, figured out some ways to enhance his application. We did Jake May opening day. We named a field after him. We did a mayor show. These guys up here signed dozens of letters. We really lobbied hard, the folks that voted on that, and we sent each one of them individual letters. It's taken almost 2 years to make it happen, and it would not have had it not been for the work of the town board, Sid Baines and the Wendell Historical Society, Jeff Pulaski, Kelly Conley, the rest of the Parks and Rec staff, Teresa Piner, Ms. Scoggins, and the town board who signed letters. I want to thank everybody for that effort because this is really going to shine a wonderful positive light on Wendell, and it's a great thing, and it's great to honor him and not have allowed him to slip through the cracks. So I congratulate his family, and I look forward to a great weekend celebrating Jake May this spring. And I hope you'll go. If you want to go, please call me, and I'll tell you how to work it out. Okay, that being said, item number 10 is closed session. Do we have a motion to go into closed session?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A6.
All right. A motion to go in closed session. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's go.
Did you alert them that the British were coming?
Yeah. Did Captain Slaughter leave? Did John Slaughter leave? Oh, I wanted to embarrass him.
Well, we're not gonna sit down first.
Oh, we need a motion to go back to open session, please.
Motion to go back into open session.
Motion to go back in open session.
We have a motion to go back into open session. All in favor?
Aye.
And do we have, did you want to
I would like to
comment?
just say one thing, please. This Friday is the Wendell Methodist pancake dinner. We'll have pancake and sausage, all you can eat. Please come, then I'll get your tickets and fill up. And with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.